We are coming on the air with breaking news out of Michigan, where you can see police giving an update on that church shooting that left 2 people dead in Michigan. Let's listen in.
Grand Blanc Township Supervisor Scott Bennett, Grand Blanc Township Fire Chief Gent, Genesee County Sheriff's Department Sheriff Chris Swanson, and MSP Michigan State Police Captain Greg Marenko. I'm going to provide an update from the incident that we spoke about earlier today that occurred at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints at 10:25 a.m. I want to talk about our officer's response. That call came out at 10:25 a.m. and 32 seconds. We had officers on scene at 10:25 and 57 seconds. The suspect, again, we're in the preliminary stages right now, was neutralized at 10:33:44 in the parking lot of that church. That suspect is a 40-year-old male from the city of Burton, who we identified as Thomas Jacob Sanford. That's Thomas Jacob Sanford, S-A-N-F-O-R-D. Currently, where we're at, an update, I gave you 10 victims who were victims of gunshot. Since then, we have 2 victims who are now deceased. One had died at a local hospital. And again, that suspect is deceased as well. 7 other victims at this time are in stable condition. 1 is in critical condition. Now, for the reunification, I had a question earlier about, hey, where can people call to see if their loved one is okay at the reunification center? I want to provide a number for you for that. It's 248-705-7352. Also, I know that our community is hurting right now, and we want to provide some resources for our community moving forward. At the Genesis Athletic Club in Grand Blanc for Monday and Tuesday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., we will have services for the community. From Wednesday to Friday, those services will be available to our community at the Grand Blanc Senior Center. That's all I have for now. I will give you another update, another press conference at 8 p.m. Thank you.
A very brief news conference there, very brief update from officials in Grand Blanc Township, where, again, we have been following developments throughout the day on what you're seeing here, that horrific fire and shooting at the Church of Latter-day Saints in Grand Blanc, Michigan. It's just outside Flint, about an hour north of Detroit. You heard the identification of the suspect there, a 40-year-old man. A reminder here that we've learned already that officials say that individual was killed by law enforcement when they first responded to the shooting at the church. They say the suspect drove his car into the church, began shooting, and then set this fire that you're looking at. Multiple sources also tell NBC News that as many as 3 devices were also found on scene. It is difficult to note that police have also warned they believe there may be more victims than the 2 people dead, 8 injured that they have just relayed here. Of those 8 injured, 1 person in critical condition. You can see the location here of Grand Blanc and where that Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is. Let me bring in Tom Winter, who is joining us here following these developments. And Tom, the identification of the suspect obviously important here, and there had been some indication that perhaps there was some bomb squad activity either at the church or at the suspect's home. What can you tell us?
It's both, actually, now, Hallie, and our reporting from our affiliate WDIV in Detroit is that law enforcement, including SWAT and bomb squad, are at this individual's home. We're saying 3 devices. Let's be clear about what we know and what we don't know at this stage. Investigators are still obviously pouring through that crime scene at the church. We just saw images of it. Given the scope and damage of fire there, it's going to be difficult and take them a while to be able to determine if anybody is inside that was killed as a result of the fire, because they couldn't leave that church. church. We are told from police on the record there that they believe that that is the case for at least several individuals. So hopefully this doesn't get a whole lot worse than it already is. Those 3 devices, we're not clear if they were incendiary devices or explosive devices. What I mean by that is we don't know if they were designed to create a lot of fire. Obviously, we have a lot of fire there, or whether they were designed to explode, and then from that, there was a fire that occurred. Those are all details that are part of this investigation, and we're still waiting to get some clarity on that. SWAT and bomb squad are at the house. You might ask, well, police said that this individual is deceased. He died in the parking lot. Why would they bring all that presence there? Given the planning that appeared to go into this incident where he drove his vehicle into the front of the church, started firing, set fire, they want to make sure that there's not anything there at the home that's going to hurt law enforcement or that there's anybody else involved in this, though they believe there's no current or further threat to the community. All of this is under investigation, as well as the why. Why was this church picked? What was going on in this individual's life that got us to this point? And there's a lot of questions about that at this hour, and all part of the investigation. The individual's been identified as an Iraqi war veteran. We worry about mental health, of course, given the impact and trauma of fighting in that particular war. And so this is all part of the investigation. Not a lot of detail at this point, but clearly this individual planned for this, and this is clearly a tragedy for that community, Hallie.
And the suspect from Burton, Michigan, which is not far, Tom, right? I mean, that is basically right in the vicinity, in the area, with a lot of questions here on motive or motivation. None of that is known at this point, right?
That's right, Hallie. That's all part of the investigation. We haven't gotten any sort of clarity on that. Officials have already said that they plan on going through the obvious things, the cell phones, all the details as far as his life, his background, whether or not there are any writings found inside the house. That'll all be part of a search that is believed to be ongoing as we speak. So hopefully we'll have more details to share with you as the evening progresses. And obviously that's what a lot of people want to know, why somebody would do something like this, and get to the bottom of that, and to make sure that there's not anybody else that he's spoken to or anybody else that could face charges for helping him either get this weapon, which is described as a long gun, or build those devices that apparently they found there at the church. The response time, less than 8 minutes from the 911 call to the suspect being deceased. Most law enforcement would tell you inside an 8-minute gap, and something like that is a pretty darn good response time. That's something that they would aim for. But obviously for the individuals who were involved in this attack, no time would have been enough.
Oh, horrific. And to be clear, Tom, 10:30 in the morning, middle of Sunday service, right? We heard from officials that hundreds of people were in the church at the time.
That's right, Hallie. And so this is the second high-profile church shooting that we've had in just the past month or so. You remember the incident in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where a bunch of school children were celebrating Catholic Mass there to start their school year. An individual, some of the doors there were barricaded. This individual fired through the glass inside of that church, and now you've got this incident here today. They initially said that several hundred people could have been inside that church at the time. Hopefully, most of them were able to flee prior to this fire getting going. I was listening to some audio recordings of the fire department transmissions. At one point, they had every single fire hydrant in that area working on this, connected to the engines and to the ladder units that were spraying water on top of this fire. And even that wasn't enough, and they were calling in, or considering calling in, additional units just to give them some more water. That should tell you the intense heat and fire and smoke that was involved in this with that church.
Tom Winter, thank you very much. I know you're going to keep us posted. We'll see you in just a little bit for nightly news here. We want to take a minute now and listen in to our local coverage from our NBC station in the area, WDIV.
The drone and the helicopter are one piece of it, but then you have the robots and those other smaller armored vehicles. And I can kind of step out of the way here. If you look at the awning that is kind of extending past and out over that Michigan State Police bomb squad vehicle, just on the other side of that door is a large monitor. And that monitor is what they use to monitor, to take a look at what the robots are seeing, what the drone is seeing, the feed from the helicopter, and so on. So those pieces of technology become their first set of eyes inside the home. That way, if there is an explosive, if there is some kind of threat, it would take out the technology versus a human, which is the best way to do it. So they've been doing that all afternoon long, and now we see there are more robots now inside. We can zoom to the rear end of that SWAT vehicle, and you can see a gathering of officers there as well. So right now, what they are doing, again, going very meticulously, inch by inch, over every square foot of not just the home, but the properties in back and the buildings in back and the entire property as a whole.
And we're just now learning the name of the suspect, 40 years old, Thomas Sanford. Are you getting any details from neighbors about whether he lived alone at the home or he lived with a family member or roommates? Are neighbors telling you anything about that?
You know, I talked to a couple of neighbors, and first of all, they all said that he goes by Jake. That's all they knew him was Jake or Jacob. And they said they thought that his father may have lived here, but they wasn't sure, but they weren't sure. But they all said that he seemed to be a pretty quiet guy and kept to himself, but they are very surprised that this appears to be him behind this church shooting. I also know there have been multiple people who have driven up here asking Michigan State Police if it was their buddy Jake. The officers here, the troopers here, can't confirm any of that information, but they were also visibly upset. Another person told me that they saw somebody who they know is a very close friend of Jake, who was sitting in a parking lot on the opposite side of this blockade, sitting in his car just sobbing. So this is news that is quickly getting out to the rest of the community, and I imagine in a smaller community like Burton, a lot of people probably knew him.
All right, appreciate it, Nick. It's going to be a long night for you and those SWAT team members on scene, and it's going to be really interesting what they are able to find in the house that may shed some light on why this occurred earlier today. Appreciate it, Nick. Now we want to get out to Noelle Friel. She's at their reunification site. People inside the church are talking with police inside the Trillium Theater at Holly and McCandlish. Noelle, fill us in on what you're learning at the scene there.
Yeah, well, we've been out here for the past several hours and things are starting to quiet down. It seems like most of the families have been taken away at this point. There are still a couple people trickling out, but for the most part, the scene is pretty quiet. If you take a look over here, you'll see where the Salvation Army was set up. There was the Red Cross on scene and the Salvation Army here today providing food, providing snacks for people because they were here for hours talking to police, being reunified with their relatives as well. As you can imagine, just incredibly emotional as people were finding their relatives and being reunited with them after this horrible event. We talked to a couple of people who are a part of this church but weren't inside when it happened and just talked about the shock of finding this out, that this had happened at their church. It's obviously unbelievable to imagine, but especially to imagine that this would happen in your own community. We heard from one woman who said she would have been there if she hadn't been at work. And so on any other day, she would have been there, and she learned from her loved ones that this had happened. So just incredibly emotional. But again, this is where those families are being held, were being held, and there's that phone number that was shared by police if you are still looking for a loved one that you're trying to be reunited with.
All right, appreciate it, Noelle. We will keep you updated on this church shooting on Local 4 Plus and click on Detroit.com. We'll see you back here at Local 4 News at 6. Take care.
Coverage from our local station there, WDIV. Our thanks to them. As you have seen, their correspondents, their reporters have been all over this. We also are following every development, and we're going to have much more coming up in just a bit on Nightly News, 6:30 on the East Coast. We'll see you then.
Right.
A barrage of emails arrived on May 31st, 2016.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.